RugbyPass have released their World 15 based on the team where they gave fans choices to pick from players, and they put these players head to head to see which player in each position would come out on top. When I say each position, they seem to lump some of the positions together, like flankers, wingers, and locks. Not so much props. I think they separated them, Loosehead, Tighthead. But I figure we have a look at the team that ended up being chosen by the fans and came out yesterday. And you guys can let me know what you reckon. These picking the team videos ones are always a bit interesting to see what kind of logic goes behind some of the choices. So Loosehead, they've gone with Mako Vunipola. Interestingly, I picked him in my Lions squad when I was having a play with that, and he seems to be a bit of a controversial one. A lot of people seem to have kind of backed off him as a first line guy in that number 1 jersey. They mentioned the guys he went up against was Scott Seo, Stephen Kitsoff, and then he beat out Kian Healy in the head-to-head voting in the final. So, Michael Vunipola is your man for Loosehead. And I didn't see how Marla went, because I think, at least at the World Cup, maybe even a bit after, he was probably England's form number 1, but there you go. He's suspended anyway, so maybe that's not worth talking about. Next, hooker. They ended up going with Malcolm Marx, 25 years old, South African. I think definitely, even just a year ago, he was clearly the best hooker in the world. Interesting, the article reads, despite having lost his place as South Africa's starting lineup, he's still one of the most damaging hookers in the world. That's an interesting one, because if you look at the way Rusty Erasmus set up his squad, it wasn't so much a traditional lineup, right? He had his whole bomb squad thing, and sometimes Marx actually played more minutes than Mbonambi. Not that I'm taking away from Mbonambi, they're both good players. But, I'm not sure if in Rassi's squad who starts and who finishes matters so much as it does for some other teams. He beat out Montoya from Argentina. He beat out Dane Coles. And he beat out England's Jamie George in the final. Apparently the final vote was 56% in favour of Mark, so it was a pretty close one. Tighthead, they have gone with Tig Furlong. And when you think in tightheads these days, it seems to be between Sinclair and Furlong, and that seems to be the way it panned out for RugbyPass's voting. He beat out Michael Alalato, who plays for Samoa. He beat out Vincent Koch from the Springboks, and he beat out Carl Sinclair in the final, 51-49. So pretty close stuff. For their locks, they've put in Maro Itoje. Again, I mean, I looked at his stats from the Six Nations, and they were pretty phenomenal, man. You don't get many better defensive players than Maro. Even though I know a lot of people don't not particularly fond of him. But he beat out Achia Sneeman, which is no mean feat, because he's in terms of his ball handling skills, probably one of the best locks in the world. Beat out James Ryan, again, which is another guy who may be his locking partner come Lions time. And then he beat out Eben Etzebeth in the final, 58%-42. So they lumped them together, so that means... Etzebeth. Eben Etzebeth came in second, so he's your other lock. Itoje and Etzebeth's a pretty good combination, wouldn't it? They said he beat out Alan Wynne-Jones and Brodie Retallick. So there's some proper locking depth in the world, eh? But yeah, so far that's your type 5. 2 South Africans, 2 English, and 1 Irishman. It's a pretty useful looking lineup, you'd have to say. But yeah, we'll move on. Flankers, on the blind side, they've put Peter Steph du Toit. It's an interesting one that it seems that they've lumped them together. I wouldn't have thought, like, not every guy who plays 6 can play 7 and vice versa, but They've put Peter Steff in blindside. I'm putting 6 as blindside, even though for South Africa he would normally wear 7. Also being blindside because they do the numbers around the other way. But he beat out the likes of Olivon from France, Tom Curry, and Adi Savia. So because Savia was second, Savia finishes over this side. And I quite like the idea of Savia and Dutoy on the same team, man, because you got Peter Steff with the tackles. You got Savia with the dynamic ball carrying and the turnovers. He adds a bit at line-out time, so yeah, I think they're kind of a good natural like combo, right? They're not like the same style player. They're quite different. So yeah, Savia beat out Tipperick and Siakolisi. So yeah, that's how it finished. And then for number 8, they've gone with the big man. Oops. They've gone with Dwayne Vermeulen. 33 years old, kind of one of the more senior guys in the squad. But definitely a very handy guy to have at number 8. The voting seemed to be pretty close for number 8. He beat out Ortega Decio from Argentina pretty easily, then CJ Stunder, and it was close between him and Billy V, with 54% going with Dwayne. It seems like Kieran Reid couldn't get in there. So, yeah. How many South Africans is that? 1, 2, 3, 4 South Africans? Maybe not that surprising given World Cup success. A couple of English and All Black and an Irishman. No Welshman to be seen. No Aussies. No Scots. But we'll get into the backs. And the South African theme continues. They've gone with Faf de Klerk. I mentioned this as fan voted, right? So RugbyPass gave up the options and the fans are the ones who did the voting. So Faf de Klerk... he beat out Ben Youngs. He smashed him. He got 86% against Ben Youngs. Then Conor Murray. Again, he thrashed him. And then it came down to him and Aaron Smith, which I think is probably a fair contest. Those guys are both kind of top of the games, and 50 Clerk won pretty comfortably. So, yeah. 50 Clerk's your number 9. You won't get many better defensive 9s than that, man. Maybe a bit of a controversial one comes in at 10 because the voting went the way of Bowden Barrett. So, yeah, he's the best first 5, even though he couldn't make the All Blacks as first 5 at the World Cup. He was picked at fullback for the most part. But, yeah, he beat out Andre Pollard and Roman and Tamak and Finn Russell. Pretty comfortably each time. 69% he got against Pollard, 76% against Ntamak, and 63% against Finn Russell. So, popular guy. I just realised I've forgotten a couple of numbers. Where's my 12 and 13? Goodness gracious. Yeah. So, he gets a bit of stick for his goal kicking, doesn't he? And his kicking from hand at times. But in terms of an offensive player, which is the way these fan pick teams usually go, I think I can get on board with Bodie. He's a Blues man now, so I'll definitely be happy to have him in there. 12, they've gone with Owen Farrell. And 13, they have gone with Manu Tuilangi. So it's an English combo there. At 12 and 13 in the midfield, with the South African and New Zealand combo at 9-10. So Farrell beat out De La Fuente, who I think is an underrated player from Argentina, Damon Delende, and then also Samu Karevi. Now that's a pretty deep field that he's beaten out. I know De La Fuente was probably never going to beat him in terms of the popularity because he plays for a team which doesn't win World Cups. We'll get to World Cup finals, but honestly, De La Fuente is a really good player. Bit of a jack of all trades, can play, make, can carry the ball. Then you got Damien Delende and Samu Karevi, proper crash ball players. So interesting that Farrell is, I guess, unsurprisingly the guy that wins there, 54% in the final against Karevi. And then Tuilangi He beat out Anton Leonard-Brown from the All Blacks. He beat out Vakatawa, and he beat out Jonathan Davis. I picked Jonathan Davis in my Lions team. He's one that some people say is getting a bit too long in the tooth, but yeah. Farrell not that popular outside England, but still he's a pretty good player, man. So, yep. Left wing. They've gone with the Semi. They're going with Semi Radradra. He's a good player, isn't he? I mean, any player from a team which is not kind of getting into World Cup semi-finals, finals and whatnot, is always going to be at a bit of a disadvantage. Any team which doesn't make it out of the World Cup group stages is going to be at a disadvantage. But the fact that Semi gets selected, I think, is a bit of a testament to his game. He is just absolutely devastating. I prefer him on the wing to midfield personally. I think he's just too dangerous out there. He beat out the likes of Kenki Fukuoka and Makazola Mapimpi, but because they put wingers together, he lost to this man, Cheslin Colby. They've quite rightly called him the pocket rocket. He's one of my favourite players to watch, man. The way he steps, guys, he's one of those guys that you look at him and go, he shouldn't be as strong as he is given his size. He shouldn't be able to make the tackles he makes. He's quick. He's agile. He beat out Josh Adams, Johnny May, and Radradra to make his way to be the top selected winger for this team. And lastly, they did manage to squeeze in a Scotsman. We'll see if they can do that for the Lions tour next year. Get a Scotsman in there. But Stuart Hogg selected as your top man for fullback. He beats out Liam Williams from Wales, Charles Piutau, and Damien McKenzie. So, yeah, there ended up being no Welshman in the squad whatsoever, just the one Irishman. New Zealand, relatively lightly represented. South Africa, I guess, World Cup champions, so no surprise that they make up a fair portion of the squad. Likewise, England, making a Rugby World Cup final, also make up a fair portion of the squad. But that's how the fans voted. What do you guys reckon? Are there any guys that obviously stand out to be big omissions, or potentially guys in this squad that you think don't deserve to be there? I think they're all pretty big name players, so there's not one guy that you look at there and think he is not up to scratch. Like, compare this to, if you haven't seen it, I had a look at one of Opta's teams where they did a similar thing, and from memory there were a few kind of real left field picks anyway. So or was it the Super Rugby teams? I don't know. I had a look at a few of the stats teams recently, and there were some definite kind of out there ones, whereas this one feels kind of steady. Maybe you could say Barrett, but I mean, World Player of the Year twice, so you know, that's something that looks good on the old CV, doesn't it? So yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts on this one. I thought it was a bit of an interesting look. RugbyPass with some of their stats and whatnot can be a bit hit and miss, but in terms of letting the fans have a go, this is the way they went. So yeah, cheers guys, take care, and I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.